Welcome to the Conduit Deeper podcast, a podcast that takes a deep dive into the details that surround our current sermon series, from current events to fascinating finds to conversations that take us deeper into the Word. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome to the Deeper Podcast. My name is Mo, executive pastor at Conduit Church, joined with our lead pastor, Darren Tyler, and we got to jump into one of our favorite chapters in all of Scripture.
Genesis 6. And by the way, if you're watching, is this when I'm supposed to say the cool thing? Like, hit the subscribe or the follow button.
Yeah.
All right, I'm being culturally relevant right now, but it honestly does matter that you're doing this, as our producer, Micah, tells me, because I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. I've figured this out. And Caleb,
is that a boomer thing?
No, I think it's generational, because here's the thing I've figured out now that I'm 53. It wasn't that my dad could not have figured out how to work the remote. It was he didn't want to.
He had you to do it.
He had me to do it.
Yeah.
And because I'm like, right now, there's things, if I wanted to, I know I could figure it out, but I got Ethan sitting right there. So you sign me into this, or you figure this out. And I'm officially that. So if Micah tells me that it's culture, like I'm supposed to do this, so yeah, hit the subscribe and the like button, which annoys the heck out of me when I'm watching it. And now here I am, a 53-year-old guy with gray hair going, hit the like and follow button.
Well, I'm sure that inspired everyone to do that, so thank you.
I don't know if it did. We're actually probably getting unsubscribes right now. I got this creepy old guy.
But Genesis 6, again, one of our favorite chapters, and why it was one of my favorite Sundays is because I have been planning this moment for the past 6 months. And the moment was that when we're in Genesis chapter 6, that I was going to don my blue Camp Nephilim shirt that my buddies over at Blurry Creatures gave me.
Can I say that there was hindsight's 2020 always? Mm-hmm. But you not doing announcements and welcome is something on stage on Sunday was a huge miss on our part. Now, you were in the parking lot greeting people with a Bigfoot on your T-shirt, so that, that's not nothing.
Right. Laid it out there.
Like, I'm willing to bet large sums of money that Brentwood Baptist Church does not have a single parking attendant with a Bigfoot shirt. But
Camp Nephilim, that's where I'd like to go this summer.
So do you say Nephilim or Nephilim?
It depends on...
Tomato.
Yeah, Nephilim. Nephilim is probably how it should be pronounced.
I have a real suspicion. It's one of those words and nobody really knows how to pronounce.
All saying it wrong, probably?
I don't know. I mean, it's like Yahweh. It's actually not even a word, but we just say it like it is.
Where's the emphasis?
Emphasis. There you go. The emphasis on the wrong syllable becomes
right. Where's
Nephilim.
The emphasis supposed to be?
Yeah, Nephilim is what I've heard, but no. When you hear really smart people, like with MDivs and stuff like that, they say Nephilim.
I noticed that you changed it on Sunday.
I was using it interchangeably.
Yes.
Yeah, because once I was in, I don't even know what to say. I don't know how to say it.
I just didn't know if it was your Southern coming out or if you were like tapping into your MDiv type theologians in the room. Yeah,
I went into it. It was funny you even caught that, because I was like, I need to pick one of these and just go with it. But then I couldn't remember which one I picked. Right. So I'm like, I guess here we are.
How many people in the audience on Sunday over the course of 3 services had never heard of Nephilim?
That's a good question. And I wonder if a different way to phrase it is how many have absolutely no idea what it is.
Right.
Who they are.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everybody would have at least read that at some point in their lives and maybe like just skipped right over it.
I mean, I got to admit, I wasn't aware of all things Nephilim until my mid to late 20s. Growing up in a independent fundamental Baptist church, KJV 1611 only, wasn't something that they doubled down on teaching. Old Testament stories were definitely taught, but I have no recollection of Genesis 6 being taught, and specifically verse 4 when it talks about the Nephilim and the men of renown, etc.
In my Bible school days, now admittedly, I missed a lot of Bible school. I almost did not graduate because of excessive absences. But there was not a mention ever of it. And then you get to these, David and Goliath, and you just sort of we just sort of read it like
Right.
it's a giant, and nobody asks any. We're just all sitting around here acting like they ain't talking about a giant in the Bible. Like,
And that's really what Nephilim means, right? Giant.
no, it actually doesn't mean that.
Well, that's so interesting because that's what many of the commentary footnotes.
So I'm saying this with confidence. I'm going to back off to about 80% confidence from 100%. My understanding is that it can be attached to that, but the word in and of itself does not necessarily denote it as a giant. It's just that there were giants and Nephilim, and they seem to be larger when you read later writings like King David. I can't remember the other, whether you see giants later. If I remember right, it was King David was the last time you see them, and they were wiped out from the earth after King David.
Now, a quick search here shows it has two meanings. The Hebrew word can mean giant, but it can also be understood to mean the fallen ones.
Yeah, that's for the most part what you would hear. Of course, I should probably ask, but people that I know that have like a Dallas Theological Seminary graduate, like that, they would say it means fallen one. So it doesn't necessarily mean giant. But I don't. Is that like from Blue Letter Bible? Like, what are you pulling that up from? Yeah,
Yes.
Strong's.
Yeah, this is from Blue Letter Bible, which is a great reference, by the way. If you're into some deep study of Scripture and you want to dive into the meaning and the word and the how it's all put together in the Hebrew, specifically Blue Letter Bible.
Yeah, blueletterbible.org. I've been using that for, and it's just like some guy in like Twin Falls, Idaho.
Yeah,
That's been loading content for years. Someone gave me the Logos Bible software at one point, and it's amazing. And I used like 2 features on it, and so I just keep going back to Blue Letter because it's so quick and so fast.
So Genesis 6, you covered the first 8 verses. It's talking about the sons of God saw the daughters of man were attractive, and they took them as their wives. And then it goes on to talk about the Nephilim were on the earth in those days. And so the Nephilim were the byproduct of the sons of God.
Yeah, that's the insinuation.
Mating with the women of the earth.
Yeah.
So who are the sons of God?
Weird thought, right?
Yeah. Sons of God, that's a whole other can of worms. The divine counsel, the Elohim.
I quoted from Derek Kidner's Genesis commentary,
Which was good. That was a good find.
because he makes the case, which is I believe he simplified it so much, and it's basically when you're reading that, it doesn't seem to match with anything that I've experienced in my worldview, so I try to reinterpret it. But if I do that, then I'm ignoring what the text is actually saying. Right. And so what the actual language is saying, that the sons of God, I think it's the Bening Elohim, like it's this word that's used throughout Scripture, and every time it's used, it's in reference to divine beings, angels. It's translated different ways, different places as angels, sons of God. But which is Derek Kidner's point. You could say it means the sons of Seth, but that does not line up with what the rest of the Bible would say, whether it's Psalm 82, divine counsel. Like when those words are used, Isaiah, Job, it's always in reference to a divine being. And here it's used as sons of God. And so it implies that there was a divine beings that had broken through where they were not supposed to be, which is, I broke it down into 3 points. I got to tell you, it was hard I could have talked for hours, right? But people can't listen for hours.
Yeah.
And I get bored of myself after about 35 minutes. So if I'm bored, surely everybody else would be. But, it felt like it really broke down so well into that they had left their habitation, which was what Jude says, Jude verse 6, that they had left their habitation. They were supposed to be in one place, and instead they are not. They're here now. And so we covered what the book of Enoch says about them. And a reminder, just in case you didn't hear it on Sunday, Enoch is not inspired. It is not inerrant. It is not canonized for a reason. And it was quoted by Jesus, Peter, and Jude. So they trusted it as a document. It was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the Second Temple Jews were certainly reading it. And Enoch, I think it's chapter 6, book of Enoch. Anyway, I'm a little unsure as to where in Enoch, but talks about them being the sons of God. He calls them the Watchers.
Yes.
And that they had come down to earth. And I think it's Enoch says that they landed, they were in Mount Hermon is where they came. And I don't even think it uses the word came down. It might, but they appeared there. So whether they came from a different dimension or whatever. I think Tim Alvarino thinks they flew in on a UFO. By the way, I'd give an interesting amount of money, like a couple of dollars, to see Alvarino and Hugh Ross have a conversation. Oh, God, that would be.
Go.
But don't you think, Mo, isn't that part of our job? So you got, okay, here's Alvarino, you got Hugh Ross, Joel Mutamale, Michael Heiser. They all have like a specific expertise. And part of our job in the pastor world is to synthesize those. Because if you're like Michael Heiser, like this is all you do, he's with Jesus now, and he actually knows whether he's right or wrong. But our job is to say, let's not make a pet doctrine be our core doctrine. Because if you do that, and this is true of any doctrine, if you make it your pet doctrine, it will shape you and then it will warp you eventually. So you have to be super careful.
I think it's part of the shepherding.
Yeah.
You got sheep all over the field, and some are in the far reaches of the field, down in the creek, over by the woods. And you got another sheep over on top of the hill, on top of a rock that he shouldn't be on. And it's like a dangerous high
That's
place.
a really good picture, yeah.
And
someone's
like,
over there on the UFO rock, and someone's over here on the old Earth rock.
And it's like, all right, guys, like, and you got other sheep following them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, okay, that's all good. Let's get back to the main field where we should be eating and where it's safe. And not that you want to always stay in a safe place, because you want to kind of go to the edges and see what's out there. But as a community of faith, as a church community, we want to try to help put some guardrails in so that we don't fall off the cliff and that we stay in the direction we should go.
That's really good, because so Tim Alvarino, I've been listening to him for years. We've recently become friends. And
these people we know.
He speaks with the confidence that I speak with about like coyotes. Like they're just like, it's just an obvious thing that they're there.
Yeah.
But he's using like flying saucers or cigar-shaped crafts. And by the way, it's entirely possible that the way that a being from the spirit realm, the unseen realm, as Mike Heiser would call it, that's the way that they travel in between the dimensions. So that's very, very possible. But the Bible doesn't say that. So we can't speak with 100% confidence on that. We speak with it seems to me kind of confidence.
Well, one of the references they refer to is what's found in Ezekiel 38.
Yeah, the wheel within a wheel. It's not 38, but it's the wheel within a wheel.
Yeah, it's in Ezekiel.
They speak of that too with Elijah, the chariot of fire. And it does. There are imagery of that kind of a thing, and it might be exactly how they do it, but we don't know. We just don't know. So it's fun to dream and think and pontificate on, but somehow these sons of God, these Elohim, went from the unseen realm to the seen realm. They left the habitation that they were supposed to be in out of pride, in the same way that Lucifer in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28, like he was not where he was supposed to be. He had left the habitation, and he wanted equality with God, and it was the ultimate. This is the sin behind every sin: pride. We want what we can't have. We see this, we desire it, and we take it. That's the Eve in the garden? It's the serpent. It's Lucifer. We see, we desire, we take.
Regarding the sons of God, are there other places in Scripture that give some sort of quantitative number as to how many sons there were that came to earth?
No. There's that, golly, where's it at? Might be Revelation. I can't, no, it's not. But it was like a third is the number
of angels.
But that's just angels. It says that word, and if I remember, that's a New Testament version, so it does not use the word Elohim. So, but be that as it may, somewhere around a third seems to be the number.
Which it's just fascinating to think how many came to the earth, how many procreated, and then how many of these Nephilim then populated the earth.
Yeah, and parenthetically, continued to populate the earth even after the flood.
Yes, I'm going to get to that.
Right. And so there was a lot. And if these are truly like a hybrid of, I remember one of the commentaries that might have been Warren. No, it wasn't Warren Wiersbe. He wouldn't have even touched this. One of the commentaries said that it doesn't necessarily mean that they were all giant, but it does mean that they had some sort of extra ability, stronger. They could subdue the human race, that they had enough power that they had to be eliminated because they had enough power to literally destroy the human race.
So we go from the Nephilim, who bore children with these women, mighty men who were of old. It says they lived 120 years. Well, in that same passage, it talks about this age cap of 120 years.
Yeah.
Men of renown. They left their habitation, and the Lord saw that there was wickedness in the earth, and he regretted it. That's such an interesting word, and I don't know if that's I'm curious what the Hebrew breakdown of that word is.
I think it's interpreted as repented in King James. You should know that. You're the IFT guy.
Right.
The idea behind it, this is the best that I could come up with language-wise as far as that we could understand it. I think I said this on the Sunday evening because it hit me, but it's like part of our church family is a guy named Tommy Prophet. Brilliant creator, brilliant artist. Music that's incredible. And if I had taken one of Tommy's songs and, quote, collabed on it and ruined it, and then that went viral, and suddenly that's everywhere now, and it's like this thing that he meant it to be is no longer what he meant it to be. There's a moment where you would say, God, I wish I would have never even made this song. This is just so frustrating to me.
That's really good.
So that's the analogy that I've come up with to help describe it, because he didn't, obviously he didn't, because he kept humans going. He kept Noah. God continued the human race, but he had to put a stop to what was going to destroy the human race. Had God not have done this, and we're going to get to the flood next week, but had he not have done this, you and I wouldn't be here today. We don't know what would be here, but with the Nephilim taking over the earth, it was destruction. It was wickedness, which is important because when you look at ancient Roman and Greek and mythology, and they speak of the gods coming to earth, they speak of it as the golden era, when Zeus was on earth and how great it was because these gods were roaming the earth. The Bible makes it very, very clear that these little g gods, these divine unseen realm beings, they're not supposed to be here. And if they were, they're going to destroy this place. It's not the golden era. Every thought was wicked. Every intention of their heart was wicked, is what Genesis, I think it's verse 8 says in chapter 6.
Are you a Marvel guy? Marvel movie guy?
No, they're exhausting. I
don't take you for much of a movie guy to begin with. It's like in the fantasy world.
No. I mean, I've gone because of my kids, but at some point we're about 12 minutes into a fight scene and we just need to get on with the movie. You know what I mean? We're burning up the CGI budget here, and I just need to figure out how it's going to end.
I'm definitely not a Marvel guy, and those that know me know this. But all the Guardians of the Galaxy movies that came out of the past decade, I suffer through them. It's just that's not my style of movie at all. But the big but on it. Now that we've gotten into some of this Genesis context and through the Watchers and studying through the Book of Enoch, it's not as far-fetched. This Guardian of the Galaxy idea is not as far-fetched as it may seem.
I don't remember if it was Tolkien or C.S. Lewis or maybe both of them, I guess, but they talk about that the reason that some of those stories feel so true in us is that somewhere written into us we know that there's something bigger than us here. And obviously, Chris Pratt in a spaceship is not it.
Right.
Like talking raccoons. That's where,
Right. I mean, maybe. I mean, Tolkien talking everything.
Yeah, talking animals. But but there is something beyond us, something bigger than just you and me going on here. And why this matters, in my opinion, is it gives an explanation to why the world is the way that it is. Yeah. There is no other explanation that is as comprehensive and hopeful at the same time as the Bibles. This is why we're going through 1 through 11. It literally describes why the world is the way that it is, and that there are evil forces that are not just humans, but spiritual, unseen, however you want to describe it, another dimension, that are at war with God. And the Bible is full of those storylines of a war in heaven, of the archangel and the prince of Persia, which was resisting him, of Revelation 2:13, speaking of Pergamon and Satan, where you have your throne, which is a city in modern-day Turkey. And you start cross-referencing some of those things with, like Isaiah 14, it speaks of Satan, right? And it's talking about the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, interchangeably. In Ezekiel 28, it's speaking of the king of Tyre, right, and Satan interchangeably. You're reading it along going, wait, king of Tyre was in Eden? Wait, what does that mean? And the answer is that because there is a parallel path. It's like two train tracks. On one is the unseen realm. One is the seen, is the only language that I know to give it. But they're going along at the same time, and that what's happening in the natural is 100% affected by what's going on in the spirit realm. They are intertwined intricately at the same time.
Oh man, it causes you to reread these verses a lot slower, because it's building a foundation for all of humanity, and our theology. And so when we go through Genesis, it causes us to slow down.
Yeah,
that's what I'm learning.
Well, think about it. This is just kind of coming to me, but when Moses would have written these words, it was at the end of his life, and Joshua is about to go into the promised land. He's literally passing the torch to Joshua, and they're going to find giants in the land. They're going to find grapes the size of small, European cars, whatever, I don't know. And he is setting the scene, inspired by the Spirit, to Joshua and the people of Israel. This is why the world is the way it is. When you encounter these giants, understand there is a bigger picture going on here than just you and me. When you see even the spiritual forces of this place and that place, at the scattering of the nations, when we're going to get there at the Tower of Babel, that he wasn't just scattering humans, he was scattering the demonic forces that were sort of coagulating, so to speak, in one place.
So, did you know that there was a 16-foot high giant discovered in Williamson County in 1845?
I'm going to need you to bring the receipts on that. I've heard this, but what?
I've got a newspaper clipping.
Okay, let's go for this. What is it? The Tennessean? When would that have been?
It was. Let's see. Who published this? I've got a newspaper clipping here. I just can't tell. I'm gonna have to go to the source.
I have heard this, by the way.
They call. So I'll read what shows here. It says the Grand Monster Tennessean, standing erect, 16 feet high, recently discovered in Williamson County by W.J. Shoemate while digging a well on top of a hill some 100 feet high and at the depth 50 feet below the surface. Entombed was in a large rock in a horizontal position.
Horizontal, entombed inside a rock?
In the fissue of a large rock.
I'm going to need someone to get the nouns here. What is a fissue?
Oh, maybe it's
fissure?
Fissure, tissue, fissue.
It's probably the 1880s version of fissure.
I don't know. It resembles the human more than any other skeleton. The monster skeleton of the antediluvian age will be exhibited at the theater at 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Franklin Theater?
What year would this have been?
1885.
It sure could have been.
For 30 cents. 30 cents, you can view this 16-foot skeleton discovered in Williamson County.
there are so many stories of that. And here's the thing. I know that it is entirely plausible. And I know that there are other recorded sightings. The fact that one was in Williamson, and by the way, the fact that it was a guy digging a well by hand. Have you dug a hole in Tennessee?
Talk about that. Limestone everywhere. I'm watching them to build this development just down the road from the church, and the amount of limestone that they've had to pull out. I mean, it slowed the project down by 9 months.
Oh, dude, digging a fence post hole in where I grew up is night and day different than here. Like, I had to get an auger because just using a post hole digger, the ground is like rock solid. So, but I say that to say respect to those. Like, we've got a well on the backside of our property here that I think was dug long enough ago that it would have maybe had to have been done by hand.
Oh, no doubt about it.
With a shovel.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You're digging down there. I can't even imagine. But so no, the answer is I did not know that. I did not know that. That's weird, wild stuff.
16-foot giant in the backyard of Williamson County. It's also believed as to be one of the reasons for why the Tennessee Titans are called the Tennessee Titans football team.
Because of a giant in Williamson County?
Yeah, giants in the land.
Maybe. I mean, it worked out for a little bit for them.
Which I think they should rename it to the Nashville Nephilim, but that's just me.
I mean, it's niche, but they'd have a loyal following with
right?
it. Right? Oh.
Come on. But the fact of the matter is, there's these kind of discoveries all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, you have to at least acknowledge that right alongside of all the other weird stuff that gets dug out of the ground, there are some unexplainable things that happen. And digging out a 16-foot tall human in Williamson County, I mean, I've found some arrowheads and like a shark tooth maybe.
And there's Civil War stuff all over the place.
Right.
But
and down around like Flat Creek Road, like you talk to those old codgers down there, every one of them have found arrowheads on their property, from the tribes that were here long before we got here. I've never heard one of them talk about a giant though. So,
well, when we're talking about these sons of God and their sons, the Nephilim, one of the points you brought up was occupation. Obviously, they left their habitation and their occupation, what they were to do. What was their role in the heavenlies to begin with?
You have to look at Enoch to get the commentary on this. So this is like the John MacArthur of 33 BC.
Sure.
When they call them the Watchers, the job is described as like a protection, like a watching over, like assigned specific places to watch.
Regions?
Yeah, if I remember right, I don't know if Enoch actually covers that, but there is, when you get to Deuteronomy 32 and the scattering of the nations, that seems to be what it is there are these regions, and they were meant to be watchers. So like watcher, even angel, is not an identity as far as like a race or DNA. It's a job title. So it's entirely possible that they were the same, like you and I, like you're executive pastor of ministry, I'm lead pastor of missions, whatever. Like, we're both humans, but we both have different titles which denote our job, right?
Sure.
And so you hear like the word angel, that word means messenger. And so that was their job, was to deliver messages. And then there's the watchers, and their job was to watch, to protect the humans. And that was the problem here, is that instead of protecting and watching them, they were actually doing what the humans were called to do, which was to subdue. So humans were, let's go in and you should go and subdue the earth. And so the watchers, instead of protecting the humans, violated their job description and subdued the humans instead of watching the humans as they subdued the earth.
Could another way of saying subdue be to take dominion over?
Yeah, that's actually how it's translated, I think, in King James and several other versions. But yeah, take dominion, subdue, own, which the human's job, go be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth. It's what you do when you're gardening, right? You are subduing the earth. You are tilling it up. You are making it better than it was. You're partnering with it, so to speak. So it's not like you're destroying it. It's, sometimes I think people think dominion and they think genocide. That is not what it meant. It was to subdue it, to take control over it, make it better, leave it better than when you found it, partner with it. And instead, that's what the Watchers are doing. And this, the conjecture is this, by the way. And I think, so we're not in the, this is what the Bible says, we're in the, this could be. So I 100% could be wrong. Jesus never said that angels can't marry. It says that they don't. They are not given in marriage. So the number one critique of this idea that these are supernatural beings is that, well, angels, the Bible clearly says that the angels can't have sex. It does not say that. It says that they don't. And the second thing is that there might have been female angels, maybe, but they are not mentioned anywhere in Scripture, anywhere. And so the question would be, are these divine, unseen realm, Elohim, whatever, are they seeing what's happening with men, creating with women, and jealous and lusting after and wanting what they, again, see, desire, and take? Are they doing that and losing their habitation and betraying their occupation with it?
Anytime we talk about this, I can't help but think of Ephesians 6. Specifically, verse 12.
Principalities, powers, is that the one?
Yeah, because there's some designations here. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers, the rulers.
Yeah.
Against the rulers, comma, against the authorities, comma, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness,
Yeah.
comma, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So there's, these could be synonymous or these could be separate groups. Regardless, there's other things happening around us, above us.
Yeah, I don't understand any the reticence to acknowledge it from New Testament scholars, because it's all over the New Testament. The only thing that sort of violates whatever is that what you don't see in the New Testament are physical appearances of these unseen forces. And so it's very spiritual. And so I think N.T. Wright has some interesting ideas as far as how Jesus reconciled these powers back to, put them in their place. And, that was part of what happened at the cross, was Jesus reconciling these powers. I think that might be in Ephesians too, maybe, or Colossians. But yeah, it's not a foreign concept to Scripture, right? That there are these other powers out there. And the foreign part is that they became human, but it also helps to describe and to define and to explain, not that God needs any justification for what he does, because he's God. But when you think about the flood that destroyed humanity, all the living creatures, and you combine it with, and here by the time this happened, it says they were all evil, every intention, every way. It wasn't like there was they were just being mean to each other. They were whatever. They were going to kill each other. And if God didn't stop that, again, you and I would not be here, because these creatures, whatever these would be called, were more powerful than humans were. There were giants in the land, right? Like, this is, again, Moses writing to Joshua. There are going to be giants. You're going to, and that is weird to us because it doesn't seem to match any of our present reality. But if you start digging in the earth and you find a 16-foot tall, like, I get suspicious if they call it a giant and it's 7 foot tall, because I've watched an NBA game, right? You know what I mean? Genetics happen. But I have never seen a 16-foot tall anything besides a giraffe, right? Like something. I mean, that's like a 2-story building almost tall.
Yeah. It's crazy how from the time of Adam to Noah is roughly 1,600 years, which you get that from Genesis 5 when you go through the genealogy. that's not that long in the big scheme of things, especially if you're attributing, the Hugh Ross perspective of billions, 4.2 billion years or however old.
Right.
1,600 years.
Right.
For it to go off the rails for humanity
Yeah.
is super fast.
It's wild because it's super fast in one sense, and then you put it in perspective and think, but at the same time, that's a long time.
Yeah, like last week felt like forever ago.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's so slow.
But it's like 1,600 years ago, Jesus, like that was Constantine. Jesus had ascended 300 years before that, right? So it's, on the one hand, gosh, that's not long ago. And you even think through, well, how many, how's it possible there are this many people on the earth? Adam lived 900 years. You can get a lot of babies in 900 years. There's a different world that they were in, a different type of thing. But point being, it's not that long ago, and you're right, but it doesn't take long when you rebel, when you leave your habitation, when you leave your occupation, and you reject your identity, right, your identification with God. It was literally the second generation where they're already murdering people, right? The Cain and Abel story. So by the time you get 1,700 years into it, let's say it's 2,000, who knows how many years, a lot of wickedness is happening and destruction.
And that, I think you went on to say, this was part of the teaching, is that some of this wickedness kind of became their identity.
Yeah, because they're rejecting their identity as sons of God. Like, what is it? We're going to see it again in Babel, but we don't want to make a name for God. We want to make a name for ourselves. And that's a whole different thing. If you are rejecting, again, Lucifer, he was created as a specific being, and rejecting that because of pride. I think it's Isaiah 14 is the pride, and then in Ezekiel 28 is that he wanted to be equal with God. Actually, I'm getting that backwards. But you see that now and think, oh, pride, equality. It's about to be June. You're going to be hearing a lot about pride and a lot about equality. And both of those are in the context of, I know better than God. And it's not equal with you and me. It's equal with God. That's what they're demanding. I want to be like God. Now, they're saying equality with each other, but when they're saying, I want to define, anyone that says, I want to define my own design, you're now taking the place of God, and you're not asking for equality with Darren. You're asking for equality with God. So if your calling cards are pride and equality, someone beat you to that, and his name was Lucifer, and he is a place designed specifically for that kind of rebellion against God.
Do you think we're going to see such a push this June like we did last year?
Oh, don't you?
Man, I don't.
You think they've learned their lessons, like the corporation level?
Okay, so backtrack for a second. When the Super Bowl was happening, and we talked about, I had a prediction that corporations were going to dial it back, go more conservative because they lost so much money, and it played out. I mean, all of the commercials were so safe this year. So and there was an article that came out about it that showed how conservative ideals that permeated the Super Bowl ads this year.
So you're talking corporate level.
Yes.
You don't think I'm going to find me a tuck-friendly swimsuit? I've been looking for one of those.
I'm not saying that they're going to pull everything, but I'm saying I'm curious. I wonder if they're going to just dial it back just a couple of ticks. Or it's one or the other, right? It's like, okay, so maybe these certain corporations or larger brands, they're having all these meetings right now, literally right now, 1st of May, about what they're going to pull off and promote in June for this.
Yeah. Well, one thing we know we're going to see, I think anyway, is, so it's like you've got the corporate world, you've got the media world, and then you've got the cultural.
Yes.
And they're the same and separate, right? Culturally speaking, nobody's backing down. The only thing that seems to be happening on the cultural level is the T and the LGB is there's a little bit of there's a blowback even from the LGB side of that, which is, if someone identifies themselves as lesbian and now that they don't want to date a transgender man, which is just a woman dressed as a man, because there actually is no such thing as a transgender. That's just not a thing, just a word. but they're being called transphobes because they won't date because I'm clearly a woman. Like I'm tucked or whatever. By the way, I told my wife last year, I was trying to explain to her what's going on at Target because she doesn't. I love that she is so blissfully unaware, guileless. And I was trying to explain to her, the tuck-friendly swimsuits, and she's like, "Tuck what?"
Well,
I'm like, "Well," and then her eyes get like, "Oh."
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm curious if Target is going to double down on that and continue to lead the way and be the tip of the spear for that agenda, or if, they can go ahead and do that, but does the rest of these brands and corporations,
it's a good question,
dial it back a little bit? Because they lost last year was record numbers.
But they lost it because of the T, not the LGB, right? Wasn't it the T part that got them in trouble?
I mean, it's the whole ideology that they're...
It felt a lot like what Jordan Peterson, when he talks about totalitarianism, they push you, and then they go too far. Mm-hmm. So they've pushed you like 10 inches, but they'll back up an inch, but they still gain 9 inches.
That's right.
This feels like the inch year where they push back on a corporate level. At the end of the day, capitalism still technically works at that level where if it doesn't make money, they've got stock shareholders that are mad about it.
Yeah. So, for instance, like the Bud Light that they partnered with a trans to promote last year that backfired majorly. So this year, like they did a major deal, like a multi-million, maybe even $1 billion deal. Like it was huge with UFC to rebrand Bud Light.
I read about that because like
huge pendulum swing.
The CEO or chairman or whatever, Bud Light, takes Dana White out to dinner or something, and that in one way, I feel empathy. Not much, by the way, because a lot of these problems, at least it seems like with Bud Light, started because some 28-year-old woke university graduate has got her little idea, and in a corporation that big, think about where we got, I don't know what our staff is, a couple dozen. There are people speaking on our behalf on a regular basis, and we're so blessed because they're saying great stuff. But if a nursery worker makes a statement, as if it was from me and causes a big blow up, like I didn't know she was going to say that.
Sure.
It's never happened here because we're super careful. But that feels like a little bit like the guy from I don't remember what the chairman's name is, but he was as shocked as anybody else. But he's also at the same time, he's responding because the share prices are going in the toilet, and he's got to, he's trying to keep his job. Yeah. So I feel empathy, and on the other hand, it's like, well, this is your own daggum fault. If you're hiring woke university graduates, you're going to get woke university ideologies. So congratulations on your stock bonus this year. Habitation,
occupation, identification, all comes together to help explain, help give some insight to these first 8 verses. What is your plan? What is your thought for this next Sunday?
Well, let me comment one more thing, because when it comes to these supernatural powers, unseen realm powers, sexual perversion is always woven into it.
That is true.
Always. Starting in Genesis 6. That was what it was, an unnatural.
That's a good point.
Sexual perversion that was not the way God designed it. And when you do that, freaky things happen and societies burn down. And that has happened over and over and over again throughout history, because the same spirits that were there in Genesis 6, the same spirits in Deuteronomy, Psalm 82, those are all still around. Still, Prince of the power of the air, he's still here. We have authority over him. And I think that's important to remind ourselves that this is little g. We get uncomfortable in general because of the word God. We worship one God, and that is 100% it. But Hebrew language, God is not just any Elohim, he is the Elohim. He has a name that we say is Yahweh, but they can't even pronounce it. We say Yahweh, but the Hebrew word, in fact, my Jewish friends, they don't say the word God because they technically don't even know how to pronounce it. Point is, he is the ultimate, penultimate, whatever. He is the God, the Elohim, These are divine beings. It's not like there are other gods that are equal to him.
Right.
Like at the end of some Marvel movie where they're all fighting each other. He could literally with a snap and it'd all be gone. That's how powerful he is. So that's it. We're going to get into the flood.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, no, it's good because as Jesus himself says in Matthew 24, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
Yeah. Yeah, Jude, 1 Peter, there's this connection that his disciples had that they refer to often in their writings especially, and it always comes, the days of Noah are a part of that with it. And now that said, if I remember right, Matthew, it says they were giving in marriage, right? They were, which I've always taken to mean that we're just living our lives like we normally live, and it's going to be a surprise, because we're just living. Your kids are getting married, my kids are getting married. That's just how it is. But I have wondered if that was part of what Jesus' understanding of being given in marriage meant, was a connection to this.
Yeah.
What we do know is this. What was happening in the days of Noah, where there were divine beings who have left their abode and habitation, come here and did not do what they were supposed to do and rejected their identity as God's divine counsel, rebelled against all of that. Does that mean that in our modern world this is what's happening with these craft that were being reported, that we're suddenly we're hearing about? Like, if we ever see somebody showing up on the evening news saying we've come in peace, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. We might have to edit this out. Just know that we've done this before. Don't believe him. He's not here, too. So I don't know if that's part of what it is, but we do know that as in the days of Noah, and you can kind of feel it right now, that there are parts of this world right now where these college campuses that's happening, these protests, these young people, and I say young people, there's professors, man, boomer professors in this. Their thoughts and intentions are wicked. Destruction of the Jews, destruction of God's people. Like, every thought and intention was wicked. And to quote my new friend Henry Cloud, when he talks about boundaries, he refers to three kinds of people. And this has been a game changer for me. There's the wise, the fool, and the evil. A wise person, and he says this because you have to know who you're dealing with. A wise person, you have that conversation with them, and they hear the truth and they adapt their life to the truth. A fool, you keep going, man, I'm having the same conversation over and over again, and nothing's changing. And it's because a fool hears the truth and they adapt the truth to fit their life. And the only thing a fool listens to, so a wise person listens to wise counsel, a fool only listens to consequences. So you have to say, if you don't get this right, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. It has nothing to do with intelligence. There's very smart fools. But he has the third category that he calls the evil people. And he's like, if you've got that person, get the guns, get the lawyers, and stop talking, because they are not there to. And that's helped us. That's helped me in my leadership. I have yet to, inside of church or staff, have dealt with someone that I felt fell into the category of evil.
Yeah.
But I have 100% in our global mission, in other facets of ministry, have encountered that, and that's 100. That's exactly what we do. We stop talking because they are there to destroy you. And what God is saying is almost like the ultimate Henry Cloud boundaries moment of every thought, every idea was wicked, and we have to start over.
Noah and the flood, starting in verse 9. One of the most popular stories in all of Scripture. This past week, we've had a bunch of rain, and then sun, and then rain again. Like, it's been a wild spring, but there's been rainbows popping up everywhere. In the evening and during the later hours of the day, which is always beautiful, right? And it's such a reminder. It's the promise. I'm sure we're going to talk about that over the next couple weeks. But that's just also part of the corruption of culture, right? They've taken something that's a promise, a symbol of promise.
Yeah, I need to pull it up. I've got somewhere a list of biblical ideas that have been hijacked by secular humanity. Pride, equality, rainbow. over and over again. It's the whole idea of woe to you who call good evil and evil good. So to take this thing, this rainbow, this promise of never destroying the earth again with water, and then using it for evil, the Bible has plenty to say about that. And I'm old enough to remember when pride was a sin, like last week.
Right.
And the truth is, it still is. And yeah, we are gonna talk about that because it's part of, as in the days of Noah, if you start to see these things being normalized that are abnormal, things that are good being cast as evil, things that are evil being cast as good, that is as in the days of Noah.
It's good. Looking forward to it. Thank you for watching this week on the Deeper Podcast. If you missed last week's teaching, you can go ahead and jump back, scroll up if you're listening to the podcast. If you're watching, go to our YouTube channel, and you can see all of our previous episodes as well, including the teaching from Sundays here at Conduit Church in Franklin, Tennessee. Thanks for joining us, and have a great week.